Moira, hi. Banks and financial services, always a problem with consumers, and recently been highlighted in a KPMG poll that actually only 13% of their customers believe that their banks actually understand what they want from their accounts. How would you improve the way banks deliver services to customers?
Well, that's a big question. And we've actually done quite a lot of research on what makes a perfect customer experience here at Henley Business School. And I think actually banks could learn a lot from that. And if I just take the top 3 key points from that, number 1, helpfulness. So really going above and beyond the call of duty. Whereas often, I don't know about you, but I sometimes feel that banks perhaps are not as helpful as they could be. If you try, for example, changing your address with some banks, if you've moved house, you have to go through the whole performance of doing it for every single account or every product that you have. There isn't a central way that you can do that across the board, for example. So helpfulness is number 1. So trying to, as I said, go above and beyond the call of duty. Number 2, value my time. How many times, Howard, do we sit there in call centre hell on a voice automated response system with people telling you that they value your call and yet they're not answering the phone in time? Or you have to press 1 for this or 2 for that or 3 for the next thing. So actually valuing my time as a customer, because I don't think banks do that. You know, they actually, things take a long time to be dealt with often. And the third area was customer recognition. So for example, do they recognise returning customers, or do I have to explain something to them again and again because they haven't got a record of it? So I'm not actually being recognised for what they've done with me in the past. I'll give you a lovely example of that. One of the big credit card companies who I had been a customer with for about 20 years, something like that. And I had a bit of an issue with them. And I said to the guy on the phone, I said, well, actually, I've been a customer with you for 20 years. Surely you know this information. And he said, madam, he said, we only keep our data for the last 5 years. So no, we wouldn't know anything about that at all. So I'm not being recognised as a customer. You know, in other words, they haven't got good insight about me. They don't really understand me terribly well.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. I had a conversation today with an insurance company and it was as though they didn't know me at all. So I think you're right, recognition is certainly a factor that could do with improving. But also this time that you mentioned in terms of time spent. Do you think it's a problem that they can't get out of that contact centre culture in a way that they see would be profitable for them?
I think it is. I think they've driven themselves down that angle. And of course, many banks are now trying to get you to self-serve online. But you don't get a benefit for that. They don't make it any cheaper necessarily. You still have to pay. So they want us to do all the work. I don't know if you've come across recently something, Howard, called the customer effort score, which I'm really fond of at the moment. And if you look at customer effort in terms of things like financial services, the scores are usually very high because it's actually hard work. You've got to put a lot of effort in to dealing with these organisations because they don't make it easy to be a customer. And if you look at it broken down by cognitive effort, the amount of mental effort you have to put in if you want to take out a mortgage or you want to take out a loan, it's pretty difficult. And then emotional effort, which I always get wound up about when you can't get hold of the right person or you can't get something resolved. And of course, then there's time effort that we've already mentioned as well. So I think they could, all of them really do with looking at that customer effort on from a customer journey perspective. So if you're taking out a loan or you're taking out a mortgage, what are the touch points in that and how could they make it easier to be a customer? Because that's what we all want, isn't it, at the end of the day as consumers? We actually don't want to spend a lot of time dealing with financial services companies. We just want it to work. So if they could make it easy for us to be a customer, I think we'd all be pretty delighted.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Being old, I've got pensions and accounts all over the place, and nobody really makes it easy. And I spend days every month trying to make sure that everything's where it should be. So I think easy is definitely something I'd look for. Is there a particular organisation that you think is good at doing that easy stuff? I'm always quoted First Direct as one bank that does things well. Are there others?
Well, I'm afraid First Direct is the one that I always quote, and I think they're superb at what they do. And if you take those top 3 areas that I mentioned, helpfulness, they're unbelievably helpful when you speak to them. There's no voice automated response system. You phone them up, somebody actually answers the phone first time. So they're very, very helpful. You're not wasting time, and they recognise you. And in fact, I phoned them up some time ago, and when I phoned them up, they said to me, I don't know if you realise it, but today is the 10th anniversary to the day that you opened your account with us. We'd just like to say thank you very much for all the business you've given us over those last 10 years. We really appreciate it. How fantastic is that?
Wow.
And that's real recognition. So you really feel as if they know who you are, and they want to have a longer term relationship with you.
Yeah, and that's not really rocket science. And by the way, consumers, other brands are available. But First Direct certainly seem to be able to recognise you, to be helpful. And that's all you want from a financial services organisation, and to trust that they're not going to lose stuff. I get to hear many complaints about people that actually lose things, like policy statements and balances and these sort of things. And it's really frustrating and sometimes can be very worrying, particularly for older people who, let's face it, have much of the finance in these organisations and don't want to be worried.
That's right.
So is there a worry-free future in store for us, do you think?
Well, I wish there was, but banks seem to be intent on just being huge warehouses of transactional data analysis. They don't seem to go out of their way to say, how can we add value to this relationship? What could we do for our customers? Not only to make it easy to be a customer, but to make it stress-free. I mean, why couldn't you log some of, have a repository with some of the banks that they will be custodians of that? Of course, the trouble is we don't really trust them, do we? So I think that's unlikely to happen in the near future.
Yeah, so if I can summarise that, they've got to rebuild our trust, recognise us, and start to do things that we consider helpful to really guarantee that we stay with them.
Absolutely.
Moira, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Howard. Thank you.